Hey everybody, Nick Blazier here with another position analysis video. We're going to stick to the theme of cube action today again and cover another holding game position. It happens to be at an asymmetric score here, but actually we can change that, make it not the case, and still have basically the same thing going on. I got to just do that to get XG to actually take the score. So yeah, we'll look at it as though it's an even score. But it came from a match. That's why it came out there. And a big mistake I made in this one, not thinking it through too much. But yeah, think through if there's any cube action here. I think, I want to talk a little bit about holding games and when we're squarely in the territory of sort of like reference positions, when it gets different, what's too much to take in a holding game, what's too early to double, all these things. But yeah, just a quick reminder to please subscribe to the channel and like these videos if you enjoy what I'm doing. I really appreciate that. Check out my website for information on taking lessons with me and upcoming tournaments and all that. I got a lot in the works. So yeah, go there to keep up, please. And I'll keep that website up to date too. But okay, let's look at the answer here. It can be a little bit more about going through variance. But this is actually slightly too good to double. We're like right on the cusp of that. So we're used to thinking, or at least I'm used to thinking, that most anchor games are just kind of simple takes for contact, especially when our opponent has work to do in bringing the midpoint home, for example, and the like blot on the 17 home. We have decent contact in the outfield, all these things. So we must win a lot. It's like 25% of the time. But the gammons are creeping up in this position. And this is an unusual characteristic of holding games. Usually when we have the anchor, it's hard to lose a gammon. But in this particular position, the third back and the huge racing deficit can be enough to do it. And the other thing, there's a bunch of things I think in positions like these that are very easy to overlook, things that I overlook myself too. But most of our standard references thinking about taking or passing a holding game, well, the idea is that we have contact, that we're going to hit a shot and win that way. And so we have to actually be able to win in that game when we hit the shot, which means we need good structure to play this out, right? And you can see that there's a big liability in Black's board over here. So we can go through a couple variants to show kind of the key features of this position that make it on the cusp of too good rather than takeable and playable. But so one of them is board strength. So what if we, instead of having the really impure 3 and 2 points, what if we're further down the race, but we have the rack now, right? Like we're going to be able to build the prime pretty easily when things go well. Well, now we're getting to a closer take-pass decision. We win a whole 5% of games more, roughly. But we still have a big gammon threat with this third checker back in our opponent's very good structure. So that's a big piece of the teeth in this position, to be certain. So we can do some other things to kind of change this quite a bit. Let's put these back. And what if instead of on the roof, we're in? And so we're going to be able to make progress and work on kind of cleaning up that board. We'll be able to challenge this blot back here very quickly. How much does that change things? That takes us pretty well to the cusp too. But this time, we're not winning a ton more games because of that. We just get to make progress and save a lot of gammons, right? So that's dropped almost 10%. And so it's not as scary if we're on the board and able to move around. So we're seeing that White's strong 3-point board with the threat of making another point quickly with the checker on the roof is actually pretty scary for this position as well. So what if we don't have to escape that structure at all too? If we're just like free and mobile, how much does that change things? Well, it takes reduces gammons even more, brings our wins up, and now maybe we have chances to salvage the board. So if your instinct here is that we can win a lot and to play this out because of White's blot and all these checkers on the midpoint, I think that's a good instinct. Like the contact's good here, but we do need to notice the weakness of the board, and this is why White has such an easy double, is that the contact isn't always going to hurt, and there's a lot of life after death, even if this blot doesn't get to safety. So Black's got their work cut out for him. Yeah, so one other variant we can look at is what if instead of like this really nice pure structure, what if White's got some sort of liabilities too, you know? This might look a lot harder to bring home. There's this contact on the 4 points. There can be some extra things that happen in a position like this. And this drops the wins dramatically. Now white has a very difficult ride home, and black has a lot of mobility, and it's going to be harder to land everything home safely without being hit along the way. So this is going to be a very playable decision again, but we're back to just, it's nice to see that with that black checker on the bar, we're pretty consistently around this 25-ish% gammons. That's a big piece of the threat in this position, is that when things go well for white, that extra checker up can cost them a lot. It's something that's easy for me to forget about, but I know that's a signal that I need to be more careful about the take pass decisions when there's a third checker involved, that it might raise the gammons a lot more than it seems like, even if it feels like the majority of the time we'll be able to enter and get moving. It doesn't seem like this should be all that different from this position to me, but we can see it makes a pretty big one, that there's just this chance that we won't enter. There's a chance that we'll enter and be pointed on. There's a lot of things that can happen with that extra third checker back, which results just in more gammons usually, in more aggressive plays for white, which doesn't mean more wins necessarily, just more double wins, right? So yeah, here's I guess a funky holding game position reference where they can get so bad, so passable for black, that actually white's fine to take a roll and try to play on for the gammon in a position like this, because nothing can really change that. I'll leave them. We showed some of the entering numbers, right, that were borderline take pass decisions, so nothing can really go bad for white unless black enters and hits immediately, which is very infrequent after they don't clean up all these things. So I think that's what accounts for the too good there, mainly that we always get to a nice cube action next sequence. But yeah, I hope this helps you think about and of what more standard holding positions are and how the contact can lead to a take most of the time. Usually, I mean, if it was simpler than this, if we had good structure, I mean, like a more normal position is going to be something like this, where maybe we're not down 10,000 in the race either. But even this is pretty good contact, I think. I think if we look at this kind of position, we're down enough in the race. So yeah, I guess this is another thing that I'm glad I pulled up on this. Being down 50 pips in the race still allows us to win on contact, but does start to generate gammons in the teens here, right? And so maybe a more normal position is one where we're closer and not so devastatingly down in the race and we have good structure. In a position like this, it's very hard to lose a gammon. But our opponent has a pretty easy time clearing it, and so our wins are going down, not having the extra contact there. But we can see the gammons are dropping, right? And this is kind of a more usual 22-point anchor game where we feel like we're probably close and maybe we can play it out. Maybe we've got the flexibility to do this, for example, you know? So yeah, if we're used to these kinds of numbers, then we can get into trouble in positions where we have this structure. Here, I'm going to swap it back to the original, where our opponent still has to clean up this blot, so we're thinking, can they even have a cube if they haven't done that yet? And stuff like that. And forget to account for all the things that we need about our good structure and our race and the gammons and everything like that. So yeah, hope that one helps with your cube assessments over the board. I'll be back with more of these soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.